Step number 1, prospecting. Every business needs to advertise. Not every business needs to advertise in electronic media, so your task as a media salesperson is to develop lists of those who might, and then to qualify those businesses to see if they are indeed prospects for your medium. So you have to do some assessments and you have to do some troubleshooting to try to figure out if the person that you're reaching out to, if the business you're reaching out to is actually going to be a good fit for media advertising. Because again, we are in the business of providing customers with satisfactions, and we need to be able to satisfy the client that we're working with to give them the best possible results that we possibly can. If they already advertise on television, radio, cable, or interactive media, then they're already prime prospects. They've been sold by somebody in the past. So now your job is to convert them to your specific service as part of their overall media mix. So in a way, it kind of seems like, why would we go and pitch a sales presentation to somebody that's already advertising somewhere? Well, those that advertise on one medium or on one particular aspect of a medium will tend to advertise on different platforms. So those that are already advertising see the value of advertising in one way or another, and it may be a lot easier to be able to reach out to them and to be able to make a presentation to them. Some of the different media that you can look at for putting together your prospect list. First off, newspapers. Newspapers not only tell you who's in business, but also how much money they're spending on advertising. The larger the ad, the more that they will likely be spending. The business section of the local paper is a perfect place to begin prospecting. What new deals have been cut? What land has been sold? To whom? Does it mean a new business is about to open? So we're not just looking at the advertisements that are in the newspaper. We're also reading the articles. We're reading the different sections to find out what's happening in our community, to be able to find those businesses that may need to be able to get the word out more than just what a news article would be able to provide. When reading your hometown paper, don't stop at reading at the business sections. Also check real estate, the food section, entertainment, sports sections for advertisers who prefer to link themselves with a reader's activities or specific lifestyle. This is also a place where you can find different types of companies. Food, you might be able to find grocery stores or restaurants. Real estate, you can contact mortgage brokers, real estate agents. Being able to find all those different types of companies in all these different sections, it is a good idea to thoroughly check out the newspaper. Even the coupons and the coupon books could be a lead to a new promotional campaign or to a new retailer. Local one ads are an early indicator of pending openings, not just of positions where a company is expanding and hiring new people, but brand new companies that may need to get exposure out. Suburban papers carry press releases from every new business in the community. Again, another opportunity to find new business. Let's take a look now at radio. Radio's ability to target demographically and geographically attracts businesses of all different types. And you're going to find different types of businesses on a country station, as opposed to a news talk station, as opposed to a rock station, as opposed to an urban station. And reaching out to all those different segments of the population is going to be a great way to be able to find different types of businesses that may appeal to the type of media outlet that you are working for. Scan the dial. Make notes of all the commercials that you hear. A great place would definitely be if you have a direct competitor, a radio station that's doing the same format as you, for example. Local cable sellers target radio advertisers, arguing that commercials on cable cost about the same as radio and have the advantage of adding pictures to make the message more effective. Now, in this case, we're talking about the local cable operators that sell their local avails that are included within the national cable networks. Local cable operators do have a chunk of time, usually a couple minutes per hour, that they can sell for advertising on the local level. Speaking of cable, like radio, cable is considerably more targetable than over-the-air television because specific channels provide content that is geared to specific demographics, to different affinities, to different lifestyles. So you're going to find different audiences that are advertising on a comedy channel as opposed to a documentary channel, as opposed to a sports channel, as opposed to a movie channel. Because of the low cost, cable has been called discount television by some national advertisers. So you're not necessarily just going to see the local guys that are buying from local cable operators, but some regional and national advertisers may also take advantage of what local cable has to offer. Cable advertisers have shown that they have a commitment to advertising in electronic media. So they believe in the effectiveness of what TV and radio is able to do. So it wouldn't be that hard to be able to convince them of the power of the medium, just getting them convinced to buy with you. Television. TV reaches huge portions of the mass audience with a single exposure, whether we're talking about on the local affiliate level or on the national level. Production costs create anxiety for TV advertisers in addition to the cost for airtime. So when we're talking about the cost of advertising on television, we're not just talking about the airtime, but we're also talking about the costs of creative. And those numbers can be overwhelming to a lot of different advertisers. Advertisers on local television are good prospects for media salespeople who can demonstrate how to use the same dollars that they're spending on television more efficiently, being able to target consumers directly using different types of media, either in addition to or instead of the television advertising that they're currently doing. All right, moving on. The yellow pages. You ever hear of those things? Yeah, they're still around, kind of, sort of. Still a good resource for salespeople. Any business that has more than the standard listing of name, address, and telephone number pays for the privilege of having those things listed in the yellow pages, which shows that they believe in advertising. And to make things even easier, the yellow pages are organized by category, so you can identify immediately what a company does. If you're looking to build your portfolio with an automotive dealership, you go to the auto dealers section. If you're looking to build up with different types of service organizations like plumbing, heating, air conditioning, you can look those up. Basically look up different types of industries and go down the list. See who is advertising in the yellow pages. They're going to be a good prospect for you. Outdoor displays. Any business that uses outdoor advertising is a prospect for electronic media. Billboards are not cheap, so even one outdoor board is going to indicate a substantial commitment to advertising. So one of the advantages that we have as sellers in electronic media is that we have the opportunity to demonstrate that their form of media can fill in the gaps in a cogent outdoor message. Because, keep in mind, when you're driving in the car and you see a billboard, it will catch your attention. You might be able to see the name of the company, but you're not going to get much more detail than that. The messages that are going to be available for you as you're reading a billboard, there's not going to be a ton of information on there because you're zipping by that billboard at 55 miles an hour and you're not going to be able to read a bunch of information. It's basically going to make you aware that the company exists. Maybe that there's a special sale going on for something. That's about it. Using electronic media can help kind of fill in those gaps and even support some of the billboards that the company is using to help bolster its advertising campaign. The internet. Most companies have an online presence for public relations purposes, social media fitting in this as well. You can look for local and regional advertisers who sponsor banners on city guides and other websites. Those that are using that form of media may also be attracted to something like radio or television. Trade publications are great for doing homework on a particular industry. So if you are doing automotive sales, for example, pick up a trade on different things that are happening in the auto industry, that are happening with dealerships, that sort of thing. The supermarket, check out the end-of-aisle displays called end caps. What is on sale? Is there a new product, maybe a new local product? A lot of supermarkets are now picking up different companies' local products that they're selling. Bulletin boards, a great place to see new businesses popping up or different things going on in the community that may require some advertising to help them along. Brochures and flyers, another great way to be able to get leads. Direct mail. The most targetable non-electronic advertising medium is direct mail because it's going to go into people's mailboxes. Now, however, when people get direct mail, many times they'll just see it as junk mail and throw it away. So it traditionally has rather low response. But you can use that as your advantage to be able to talk to an advertiser and say, hey, how would you like to increase your effective reach, as opposed to just reaching out with a bunch of paper that may wind up in the recycle bin. It's going to be an advantage to you to be able to reach out in that fashion. Government offices, believe it or not, is going to be a great place to be able to generate leads and prospects. The county clerk, the Secretary of State, the city permit office, any government agency that accepts new filings should be contacted. And here's just some examples. The Secretary of State has files of newly created corporations. City Hall issues building permits, many times on the county level. That's done as well. Your state alcohol and beverage agency controls liquor permits, and your county clerk files real estate transfers. So if new businesses are popping up, a company buys land. That means they're building or they're remodeling an existing facility. Perhaps a new business is opening up. Great opportunity to go and check that out for your prospect list. Handshakes and referrals. Don't overlook the prospecting value of your personal network. As you're going out, as you're meeting people, great opportunity to get your name out there. Use different organizations that are out there, civic groups, business breakfast clubs, groups like Kiwanis and Rotary. Those are all great opportunities. Chambers of commerce, a great way to do networking. Give your business card. Let people know what it is that you're all about. And finally, your own operation. Whatever TV or radio station that you are working at, many times they will run advertising on the station itself that tells people, hey, by the way, you can advertise with us. One of the great advantages of doing that is if a company happens to be, the owner is sitting down to listen to the radio, watch TV, they are tuned in, they're already in one way or another going to be a fan of that particular station, and the opportunity to come up with an announcement that says, hey, by the way, you can advertise with us. Why don't you contact us and we can get you some more information. So using your own airwaves is going to be a great way to reach out to people that could be potential clients. So now with all these different ways that you can put together a prospect list, let's talk about the process of list building. It's a lesson that every sales representative must learn: how to build an account list, usually from scratch, using all the prospecting and networking techniques that you can muster. So look from every source, every angle, and put together a list that is uniquely yours because you put it together, and then make that list work for you. Something to keep in mind when you're working for a sales organization. Most sales organizations work on a first-come, first-served basis, and the arbiter is the sales manager. Therefore, claiming an account is done only with the sales manager's approval. It is not unusual for whenever different salespeople are going out and making calls, trying to build up their prospect list, that two salespeople may wind up calling on the same business. So whenever that happens, generally there's going to be a bit of a discussion, at the very least, as to which salesperson should have the right to be able to call on that particular prospective client. The sales manager is going to make the final decision on that. A list may be defined geographically. It may be defined by category, but most lists are going to be catch-alls of clients assigned by the sales director, combined with prospects uncovered by the seller. So depending on the sales environment that you're on, you may be in charge of generating leads from the north of town or from the south of town, or you might be in charge of working with particular industries. And in those sorts of cases, if you have rather superior knowledge on a particular industry, that you might be considered a specialist in that industry, there are a lot of sales managers that like having that, so that they can rely on that particular salesperson to be able to go out and prospect with different businesses that fit within that industry. And because of the knowledge the salesperson has about that industry, it makes a much stronger connection with those prospective clients. Now, the thing that every salesperson dreads, and everyone that thinks about what a salesperson does, we hate talking about it. It's a fact of life in the sales world. Cold calling. Cold calling means walking into a prospect's place of business unannounced, or making a phone call unannounced. Basically, it's a cold visit. That's why they call it cold calling. 2 typical questions asked by a business owner that receives a cold call. First off, what's this all about? And second, how do I get rid of this problem? Because let's face it, when we are intruding in someone's work time, we're intruding in someone's space if we're there in person, the people in that business are busy. They're trying to work their own business to make it successful, and they're putting a lot of time and energy in what they're doing. And to stop to talk to someone that's trying to sell them something, a lot of people see as intrusive and interrupting of their day. But if you're doing a cold call, as the salesperson, it is your job to keep the prospect as far away from that second question. How do I get rid of this problem? And you want to do that by being as friendly and being as persuasive and being as helpful and serviceable in your approach as you possibly can. Always begin the conversation by stating the purpose of your call in words the buyer wants to hear. Here's a couple of examples of how you can do that. I came by to talk with you about generating more customers for your business. Every business owner would love to have more customers. I came by with an idea that could possibly give you an edge over your competition. Again, who doesn't want to be number one in their field? These are just a couple of examples of ways that you can introduce yourself and perhaps get more than a slam of the phone into your ear or a slam of the door in your face. Now, Mark McCormick offers this bit of advice. Have a pretext. It doesn't have to be a profound or persuasive reason, but it has to be slightly more compelling than, I want to sell you something. Now, when we're talking about a pretext here, think of it as a motivating factor, as a reason that you come up with in order to make the cold call. He offers a couple of examples here. First off, a visit to someone in a new job saying congratulations, welcome to the community, perhaps a new business that's opened up, and you introduce yourself and welcome them and wish them well in their new endeavors. You just happen to be in the neighborhood. Maybe you were calling on another account that happens to be in the same area, on the same street, in the same downtown, if it's in a mall, in the same mall, and stopping by the businesses in that same area and talking about the fact that you do business with somebody that is close to them, and sharing the success that they have had working with you. McCormick also adds one more pretext. He says, invite them to something. A lot of stations have budgets where you can invite them out to lunch or dinner. A lot of times stations will have trade opportunities where you have tickets to go to a special event, perhaps a concert, a wine tasting, something like that you can attract a prospect to go with you on for a little more of a social call, while also being able to talk with them about their business and trying to let them know about the things that you have to offer them. If you walk in the door as a breath of fresh air for prospects, you'll be less of an infringement on their time. Again, they don't want to be sold something. They want satisfactions. They want answers to their problems. And if you provide yourself in a way, and you present yourself in a way that it seems like you would really be able to help them with something with their business, they may be more receptive to what it is that you have to say. Don't take rejection personally. There's a lot of rejection in cold calling. The payoff is also very low. So we've talked about averages in the previous video, that your overall success rate compared to the number of calls that you make is going to seem relatively low. But keeping in mind that those percentages, compared to other sales successes, may not actually be all that bad, depending on how much business you generate, how hard you work at generating those leads, and how personable you are in being able to establish a relationship with and maintain a relationship with prospective clients. Your most productive prospecting will be done by telephone. Again, it's the idea of the whole intrusive thing, walking into someone's door unannounced. Whereas with the telephone, there's a little bit of the barrier there with the technology, and you can use that to your advantage. Even if someone doesn't have time to speak with you at the moment, that you could possibly set up a time that you can have a conversation. And it's also an advantage to you as well, where it doesn't require you to be on the road knocking door to door to door to door, that it takes a lot less time to make several phone calls than it does to make several in-person visits. Keeping track. Keep a record of all calls, whether in person or by telephone. When preparing a record of a call, the more detail that you keep, the better. So writing down some of the highlights of the conversation that you had, some of the things that you offered the prospective client, some of the things that you've learned from the client in the conversation. All of that stuff is going to be great material for you to be able to keep track of when you're trying to work on making a presentation to a prospective client. If the client's an active advertiser, the file should include plans that you've offered the client previously, as well as the one that the client is currently using. Also, to be included in the plans, in the file, your advertising contracts, the schedules the client bought, also past contracts, affidavits, credit check information, any other research that you have done on the client, as well as a needs analysis. We'll talk about needs analysis a little bit later on. Basically, anything that gives you any sort of insight into that particular company and that particular client, all of that information is great to have in your client file. Now, when we talk about a file, we could be literally talking about files that you keep in a file cabinet. We can also talk about using a database. The research on whom to call comes first before the call. Now, this is important. Any sort of information that you have on the client ought to be built up in such a way that you have that information readily available anytime that you are making a call to a particular client. That file, that information should be in front of you so that you can refer to it, overview notes as you're talking with a client so that you're not guessing and asking questions that perhaps you've asked in the past, that it helps you to be able to keep on top of what it is that the client is all about. The basic element of any sales software is the customer database and fields for information about contacts, histories, pricing, again, all the different types of information that we talked about before. Time management pages and word processing, also rather basic in a lot of the different types of sales software that is available to help you to be able to make notes, to be able to keep up with schedules and that sort of thing. So that is step one. That's prospecting.